Enough of the talk. Fall camp is here for Arizona football, and there are a lot of very intriguing storylines that we need to get to.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, Mike Luke, and thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. The show's brought to you by FanDuel. Check it out, all kinds of good things at FanDuel. You go to FanDuel, you know your money's good, and you can bet on a variety of different things, and they are all fun. Check it out, FanDuel. All right, now, Arizona football camp is here, and optimism springs eternal. Very, very excited. Now, listen, anybody that knows the history of Arizona football knows that every time somebody gets excited, or every time we get excited about something, the team generally falls flat on its face. We have seen this, again, anybody that's lived it knows this is accurate. You go back to 1993, after Arizona destroys Miami in the Fiesta Bowl, then guess what happens? Arizona comes back the next year, they are on the cover of Sports Illustrated, rock solid, and Arizona finishes 25th in the country, despite some people picking them to win the national championship. Then you could say fast forward to 1998, Arizona finishes 12-1 and beats Nebraska in the Holiday Bowl, finishing 4th in the nation. So pretty much returning, I think, 16 of 22 starters. And guess what? Penn State, the very first game of the season in Happy Valley, Penn State beats Arizona 8,221 to 7. It was that close. And then we've all seen it. We all know. I don't need to keep rehashing it. But Arizona has never been able to string together two very good seasons back to back, or at least quite in a while. This is the year that I think a lot of people are hoping that can be the case. Now, look back at last year's team. Arizona finishes 10-3. They finish 11th in the country. And and here's the thing. Jedd Fisch is a bad name in Tucson, and he should be a bad name in Tucson because of all the fibbing and all of the squirrely stuff that he did. But at the end of the day, Jedd Fisch did a very good job while he was here at the U of A. But you could also make the case, though, that last year's team was also totally reliant on Noah Fifita. Because keep in mind, Jedd Fisch, by all accounts, even his own words, really wanted to play Jayden de Laura. It didn't matter that Noah Fifita was throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns each game. All he would say is, once Jayden's good to go, Jayden's going to be back out there. And then, and basically, even when it got to the point where that really wasn't realistic anymore, he still kept saying that, you got to give Noah credit, but I just don't know where he would be without Jayden. All of this nonsense. Boo, boo, boo. Noah Fifita was a big reason why, and he is still here at the U of A, and that is one of the big reasons for optimism. First of all, with Noah Fifita, you look at him, and he does not look the part. We all know that, but he is the part. He is everything. I don't believe that there is a quarterback in the country that I would take over Noah Fifita. I don't care how tall he is. I do care about his production. And when I watch him on the field, I can see this, is that he makes he can make every single throw he needs to be able to make, and he makes the easy passes. That is such an underrated quality. Last year, Jayden de Laura could throw the ball 900 yards in the air, but for the majority of the time, he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He was going not manipulating the pocket well, and it was just very frustrating. Noah Fifita comes in. All of a sudden, these little 10-yard outs are open. All of a sudden, the tight end is getting involved. All of a sudden, players that we haven't heard from are catching the football. Everybody eats with Noah Fifita, and honestly, I do believe that when he leaves here, I think that he is going to leave here as the most beloved Arizona Wildcat of all time. And here's why. First of all, like I said, 5'7" quarterback, 5'8" quarterback, you generally don't see that. But more so than anything, he came to the University of Arizona, and a lot of people had questions about him. Redshirted his first year. Then in his second year, he, much to his coach's begrudging acceptance, he went out there on the field, and it took him a little bit of, basically saved the Stanford game for Arizona. Took him a couple games to really get his sea legs, and then he was awesome. And Jedd Fisch kept looking for excuses to put Jaden DeLaura back into the game. Then Jedd Fisch leaves, and everyone's kind of like, all right, well, I guess Noah Fifita and all them are probably leaving too. And he says, nope. I'm coming back to the U of A. Not only did he to say that he's coming back to the U of A, he came back without not even knowing who the offensive coordinator was. I mean, seriously, I don't even know that I would do that. And he did that, and so he's been a big part of it. He's been a big part of this pretty much all off season, and his leadership skills are second to none. Just a very, very quality individual, and somebody that I think we're just very, very lucky to have here at the U of A. Guys like him and his family, with the character they have, with the integrity and the honesty they have. Guys like that just don't come around very often, especially in this day and age where everybody's kind of about instant self-gratification. The Fifitas are definitely they're different, and they're very unique in that regard, and that's definitely to their testament. Very humble people as well. Again, could have gotten a lot more money going elsewhere, but they said that a big part of this was they like Tucson. They like the University of Arizona. They want to be here. So Arizona's got, in my opinion, I'll put Noah Fifita against any quarterback in the country. I really will. To me, he's that guy. Then, obviously, you got the best wide receiver in school history, and that's not even a question. In Tetairoa McMillan. T-Mac is a total unicorn when it comes to U of A athletics, when it comes to U of A football. T-Mac was the top, one of the 2 or 3 highest rated wide receivers in the entire country, and he came to the U of A. U of A doesn't get players like that. This was the equivalent of Arizona football landing Mike Bibby or something like that. I mean, you just don't. Somebody of that stature, you just don't see it. And he wasted no time, obviously. He this past year, he caught for 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft next year. His catch radius, the term that everybody loves to use, is absolutely next level, fantastic. He can catch pretty much everything. Now, I think a lot of people are wondering, how's the foot doing? Well, he looked just fine at media day, and when I asked him about it, he said that he's ready to go. He's locked and loaded. So, I'll take him at his word, because if he's healthy, he's one of the 10 best players to ever come through the University of Arizona. That's just how good he is. That is, the kind of talent that he has, and NFL folks see it as well. I mean, when you look on NFL boards, he is either the first or he's the second wide receiver off the board. He's that guy. He's that good. And just like Noah Fifita, he is a great, great individual. Very humble. And that's something that all these dudes are, a lot of these guys are, especially the Servite Orange County kids. They all have next level intangibles to them. And, from Noah Fifita to T-Mac, clearly those are 2 of the absolute strengths of the team. And Arizona was very lucky to get them back. Then, obviously, the third part of that, Jacob Manu. Jacob Manu came in there as out of the 4. He's going to be the quarterback of the defense. Jacob Manu came in, and he was kind of an afterthought recruit, but he quickly became the quarterback of the defense. He's somebody that I think Duane Akina is going to work very, very well with. Very excited to see how he's used. I think he's going to be used a lot in blitzing situations as well. But those 3 guys are really a massive reason for the optimism that is surrounding U of A football and everything that goes into it. Now, we're going to talk about the coaching staff. We're going to get back to the players and a bunch of different stuff. But first, FanDuel. Check it out, FanDuel.com. All kinds of great stuff at FanDuel. Now, you might say, Mike, there's no sports on right now that I like. Well, you know what? Guess what? FanDuel says, do not worry about it. You can bet on sports that even if you don't like them, you can, it becomes interesting if you got money to bet on it. I can speak from that personally. I do not care about baseball, but guess what? If I got a little bit of money on baseball, I all of a sudden have a little bit of an interest in baseball. So, there's that. But you also know your money's good. That's the other thing about it. With FanDuel.com, you're not sending it. You're not having to meet some guy on a back alley road and, exchanging some envelope and all that. You don't have to do any of that. FanDuel.com has you covered. Check it out, FanDuel.com. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the coaching staff. Here's where I'm at with Brent Brennan, and here's why I'm optimistic about this year's team. I have a hard time seeing Brent Brennan fall flat on his face. Now, will Brent Brennan be, will Brent Brennan be Pete Carroll? Probably not. But you look at his track record, he's the epitome of solid. You look at what he did at San Jose State, which is a very difficult place to win. And he did he did a solid job there. Getting into the Mountain West Championship game is, something that I don't think that you can really look past. He did a very nice job, and that's a place without a lot of advantages, a lot to your facilities, and you got to be able to scout. You got to be able to find players that fit in. He's going to have a lot more talent at his disposal this year. But what he's also got going for him, though, is I think he's a very mature person. I think he's a good guy. He's been around football his whole life. He knows the opportunity that he has in front of him, and I think that he's going to capitalize on it. I also like the fact that he's a CEO type. He's not I don't love when the head coach is also calling plays for the offense or defense, because I just think it takes away from too much of what they could be otherwise seeing. He's going to let Duane Akina call the defense. He's going to let Dino Babers call the offense. So that's good. Now with Duane Akina breathed a lot of life into that Arizona defense this past year. I think Johnny Nansen would have continued to get better, but Duane Akina, I think, was the kind of the conduit that made all of it work. And did it with a smile on his face. You don't see a lot of 66, 67-year-olds that are running up and down the field, that are really getting into players' faces, like Duane Akina. And Duane Akina said as well that he wants to build off what the defense did last year, but he also wants to have more of an attacking level defense. And I think that's maybe why somebody like a BBN, Big Bill Norton, moved on, because he's more of a, I'm going to take up multiple blockers, take up multiple situations. I think he wants players like Darton, players like, heck, even Chuba, Isaiah Johnson to be able to get upfield. So I think you're going to see a very creative pass rush, and I think he's going to be a defense that is going to not want the offense that they're playing against to be able to kind of take their time and scout things out. I think he's going to want to make as big an impact there as possible, and I think that's going to be the case. And as you know, Arizona has a loaded secondary. Arizona's got one of the best secondaries in the entire country, and when you look at this secondary, I think you also know that there's not a better secondary coach in the country to be doing this and working with this than Duane Akina. He's that guy. He's that dude, and watching him, I think he's going to do wonders again with a Takario Davis, with all the safeties coming back. I look for a Marquise Groves Killebrew to make a big impression as well. Like I said, pretty excited about what he's going to be able to bring to the table, because I think there's a lot that he's going to be able to bring, and I think that that just kind of factors in again with the stability of the coaching staff, with the stability that these guys are here. I mean, this is going to be their last stops. I mean, you judge by their age, judge by where they've been. This is going to be their last stop, and I think they want it to work. And I think Brent Brennan did a very good job figuring out who were the people that would fit in best. And Duane Akina already has a very, very strong relationship with these players, with this staff, and I think you're going to see a pretty good defense from the U of A. And if there's anybody that can make some of the question marks work, like I said, I think with in the defensive backfield, I think you have some questions about who can be that other corner. Can it be Marquise Grove Killebrew, because you already got Traden Stukes on the inside? And if it can be, Duane Akina is going to be the dude that's going to be able to make it happen. I also think you're going to see him get pretty creative when it comes to the linebacking core, because you've obviously got Jacob Manu, who is an absolute stud, but I think you're going to see Genesis Smith from the safety spot be in the box a lot more, kind of in that dollar package. And again, big time stuff there. Now, when it comes to Dino Babers on the offensive side, Dino Babers has a lot of talent at his disposal. I think we're going to find out very, very quickly if Dino's still got his fastball or not, because Dino, listen, we've talked about it a ton. Dino's got Noah Fifita, QB, obviously. Then you got T-Mac. Then you've got a plethora of running backs as well that are able to make plays, and you've got an offensive line that returning 4 of 5 starters. So there's a lot of pressure on Dino, and honestly, there should be a lot of pressure on Dino because he's got an offense that I think should be one of the top 10 to 15 in the country. And I don't think that you need to get super creative with any of this stuff. I think you just need to be able to let these guys do what they do, and if you let them do what they do, then I think Arizona's going to be in some pretty good shape. Watching listen, there are some questions, obviously, but they're questions that I'm not really too concerned about. Like, how does Ja'Cory Krosky merit? How does he, adapt to Power 5, Power 4 now? Quali Conley, the same thing. But both these guys have shown against good competition that they're next level players. I don't really worry about that. I am curious to see how the wide receiver, how everything is kind of put forth, because the wide receivers outside of T-Mac are largely unproven. Montana Lamonius Craig, sounds really good, looks really good in theory, but he's never really done it. I mean, he's been at Colorado, he's been at Arizona. The coaching staffs in both places liked him, but he's just never quite materialized. Is this going to be the year? Malachi Riley, I'm huge on. I think Malachi Riley, I think, is going to have a massive season. So that's going to be something that'll be fun to look at. But like I said, you got to find out who that other lineman is. We'll find that one out, and then go from there. But like I said, I expect this should be a top 10 to 15 offense in the entire country. You've got the kind of talent, you've got the kind of synergy, you've got the kind of camaraderie. I think you just need to be able to make it happen. But overall, I like the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff is solid. I don't know that it's necessarily dynamic, although I think Akina brings some dynamic qualities to it. But overall, like I said, I think there's a pretty good coaching staff, and I think Brent Brennan did a very, very good job. And listen, he knows there's a lot of expectations on him. A lot of coaches are inheriting situations, being that they're new coaches, generally that are crap. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of times you're inheriting a situation where a coach took all of his players with him, or a coach kept all of his players, but they weren't any good, so it didn't matter. This isn't one of those. This is a one where the majority of the players stayed, and that was obviously a very big part of this. Now, we're going to talk about some of the integrity on this in just a second, but first, Gametime. Check it out. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. All right, here's the great thing about Gametime. You can go to a bad rock concert, you can go to a great sporting event, and guess what? Gametime is probably going to have you covered both ways. Check it out. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. You will thank me later on this one. Again, Gametime, that's where it is at. All right, we're going to come back and we're going to close this up with another reason there should be really high expectations for this team. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, this team, the integrity on this team is through the roof. Now, you compare and contrast that with Jedd Fisch. Jedd Fisch, listen, I have no problem with a guy going on to a better job, and we can be very honest here. The University of Washington is a better football job than the University of Arizona. It just is. My problem with Jedd Fisch will always be the lying that came into place, and he still does it to this day. In the past, he said, I didn't want to leave the University of Arizona, but I didn't really have a choice because they weren't working on my contract. Well, that was crap, because he went on Jim Rome literally like 2 weeks earlier and said that they were closing in on a pretty good deal, and he felt great about where they were at. So there's that. Then his agent starts calling multiple media members in the city, talking about how there wasn't any contract negotiations since September, and there were a bunch of promissory notes and all this stuff, just a bunch of crap. And so what happens then? that gets picked up by one person in the Northwest that has no clue what he's talking about, and it gets run with, but people here knew that that was all garbage. And then Jed Fish goes back on Jim Rome, and he said, well, with the when you're the second best team in the country, or when University of Washington calls, you got to take it. Just say that the first time. Don't say all the 9 other lies, dude. Boo, shoo, you suck. Boo. Now, but these players, though, didn't really take that. I mean, the loyalty that he preached is what these guys actually lived by. I mean, a Tetairoa McMillan, a Noah Fifita, these guys could have gone to a lot of different places and made more money. They just could have. But they decided to stay here. They liked it. They liked the environment, and they pretty much liked everything involved with it. Jed Fish could have learned a lot from some of these young men. So but my point with that is that there's a lot of integrity that's on this team with these players, and I think that's something that as an Arizona fan you've got to be incredibly enthused by. These players want to be here, they want to succeed, and they also don't want to be. And I think they want to be able to carve out their own legacy. If Jed Fish goes and wins 8 or 9 games at Washington, cool, he's another coach there. You've got a long history of really, really good coaches there. He's taken over for one. But if you win big at Arizona as a quarterback or a wide receiver, that's your own legacy. And that's something that I think somebody like Jed Fish, who just looks at the money and the prestige, probably took for granted. And I think these players, again, they showed that. But when it comes to this season, though, like I've been saying, 9 wins minimum. Got to have 9 wins minimum because, quite frankly, you're probably not going to have a team that's going to be as talented as this moving forward. Now, it might take you a couple years, maybe you do, but you're not going to have another T-Mac. Guys like T-Mac don't come around here. He's already the best wide receiver in school history. Guys like Jonas Savanea, who's going to be a first-round pick, generally don't come around here. Jacario Davis, the same thing. Then obviously it goes without saying about Noah. So there's a lot of reason for optimism going into this season, and it's deserved optimism. But now, it's time to compete. I do feel really good that with Brent Brennan, a coach that's been through the ringer, that has been through, granted at a lower level, but he's got a maturity level to him that I think is going to play off very, very well with this team. That means a lot to me to be able to have somebody like that. It also means a lot to me as well that, these guys know. Dino Babers knows the kind of talent he has. Duane Akina was on this team last year. He knows the kind of talent that this roster has, and that's going to be the next step for the U of A. Because if you can string together 2 really good seasons back to back, then you start saying that maybe Arizona can turn into a program as opposed to kind of that one year spike. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk about the position battles in camp. There's a lot of very intriguing position battles in camp, but thankfully, Arizona's also got a lot of players that are stalwarts that are good to go, and I think we all know that. But, again, on the offense, we're going to talk about the other offensive tackle. Who is that? Defensively, who's going to be that second corner? Is there another linebacker? What's the depth like on the D-line? There's a lot of different questions to ask. What about punter? I think that's another fair one to ask as well because Arizona's had some fairly good punting as well. But overall, though, you got a really good template, but you're going to have to find some playmakers, and I think we'll be able to find that one out. So we're going to talk about that. We also might talk a little bit about TJ Benson becoming the assistant coach for the University of Arizona basketball. TJ Benson is a great dude. He worked really hard. It's cool to see him in the position that he is in. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Bear down, back the A. We will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.